Not all stress is bad. Some of it is a sign that you're finally stepping into the version of yourself that you've been working for. But most of us, we were trained to treat any discomfort like a red flag. It's like the second our heart rate spikes, we panic, we shrink, we back out. Meanwhile, the stress that actually drains us, the people pleasing, the over functioning, overdoing it, overachieving, the emotional labor, we tolerate without question. So today, I want to flip that script. We're going to talk about the stress you should tolerate in 2026, the kind that stretches you, that strengthens you, that signals that you're growing, and the stress you need to stop normalizing because it is quietly cracking you, just like my voice is. So if you've been feeling stressed and confused about what that means, take a deep breath, subscribe to my channel because you are not failing. You are evolving. I'm Sophia, and I help driven women climb in corporate without the cost of burnout. And I know because it happened to me. Let's talk about this. Growth feels awkward, right? Being visible feels awkward. And it feels awkward because it's different. It's something that you haven't done before. It isn't a part of your everyday routine, right? Asking questions in a room where once you were the person in the back taking notes, that feels awkward. But this awkwardness, it isn't danger, it's development. I want you to challenge yourself when you feel that discomfort and that stress. And I want you to reframe it and saying, yeah, this is awkward because this is new. This is awkward because I'm growing. This is awkward because I'm finally stepping into all of the things that I've worked for. I can remember a time. Well, let me ask you this. Who remembers the first time they rode a bike without training wheels? Come on. You know what I'm talking about. It was awkward, it was scary. Wait, don't tell me you're one of those people who hasn't ridden a bike. I would say in my life I've come across maybe five people who never learned how to ride a bike. So if that's you, I won't judge you, but bear with me here. So when you ride a bike with training wheels, you feel invincible, you feel stable because every time you kind of shift your weight accidentally or even on purpose because you're having fun, you have those two wheels on the side of your basic wheels that are keeping you stable and keeping you focused, even when you're wobbling. In fact, wobbling doesn't even happen. You just run over a crack in the street, you're good, right? But when you ride a bike for the first time without training wheels, it feels wobbly and you feel terrified. You feel uncertain. You want to quit, right? But low key, you kind of feel proud, right? That's the same feeling you get when you take a stretch roll at work. It's like you're finally learning your steps. You're making little steps toward where you want to go. It's a little uncomfortable, but you're finding your way. Are you avoiding that exact wobble that could take your career up a level? I want you to think about that because that's what stress does sometimes. Stress also comes from setting and holding boundaries. A boundary is a circle. In my world, it is a circle that you create around the things that you hold nearest and dearest to your heart, right? Maybe that is your quiet time in the morning with coffee. Maybe your boundary is not checking your email after 5 p.m. Or how about leaving the office at 5 p.m.? That's your boundary. You are protecting your own time, right? And that's why you create those boundaries. And yes, setting those boundaries, it comes with a little guilt, a little fear, because you're always on, you're always green when it comes to either the Slack or the instant messengers. And if you aren't online at 5:01, someone's going to notice that you're not green. Oh no, someone's going to notice that it's 12:15. Sophia hasn't come back from lunch and she has a yellow dot. Oh no. What? Yeah, it's uncomfortable because we're afraid of how that looks to other people and it's also stressful. But isn't it even better to take your power back by knowing, hey, I'm actually going to take lunch away from my desk. So yeah, that's a boundary. And yes, it takes me 5 extra minutes to walk from the lunchroom to my desk. It will be okay, right? I want to tell you that that discomfort that you feel from setting a boundary, that's normal because this is something different. This is something that is not your norm, right? And it's temporary. Boundaries help you reduce your burnout. It helps you stay closer to your values because you're checking in with yourself, and it increases your perceived leadership credibility. People will say to themselves, "Oh yeah, it's about 12:05. Sophia's not back at her desk, but she always takes lunch away from her desk. She'll be back. I'm not worried about it." Or it gives your team permission to actually leave their desk at lunch instead of being on pins and needles. Is she going to come back? Is there going to be a deliverable? The first time I told my VP, I can do this, but here's what needs to shift. My stomach, oh my goodness, it was like an Olympic gymnast. Like it was everywhere. I felt powerful in a way because I knew what overworking was taking from me. Overworking, working at my desk through lunch, working, burning the midnight oil, working until late in the hours of the evening. That was taking away my time to rest, to sleep, to unplug, so that way I could show up as my best self. So yes, my VP was uncomfortable that I had to say, I can get this done, but what needs to shift is the deadline. We can provide, 50% of the deliverable today, but the rest will have to wait until Tuesday or Wednesday because, I mean, yeah, my VP was uncomfortable. Yes, my VP looked at me like, okay, I'm annoyed and why are you doing this? But who pours into yourself if you aren't leading yourself, right? I want to know what boundary feels stressful only because you're not used to being powerful in it yet. And if you know of a boundary, go ahead and type one in the comments because the more we can talk about boundaries, the more we can help others. I just mentioned two, right? That are pretty, I think they're a low lift. But, sometimes taking back your lunch hour gives you energy to show up as your best self. Sometimes leaving the office at 5 o'clock, it gives your mind space to reset. Yeah, that stress that your VP feels, that's discomfort. But guess what? It's not yours to own. It's for the VP to own, right? Why is the VP stressing you out anyway? Are they not necessarily preparing their workload accordingly? Are they not telling their boss no? Maybe it's their problem, not your problem. Let me talk about stress that comes from imperfect action. So often, like high achieving women, we delay action because we're waiting for certainty, right? We're going to wait until we have all the details and then we're going to move forward. But in doing that, we are creating urgency, unnecessary urgency, because when you're waiting, your fear grows, and imperfect action, it kind of feels like, is this my brand? My brand is to always deliver a perfect product, right? But it's okay if it's imperfect, if it reduces your stress. If you wait till the last minute, you're going to have to build not only 5 slides that Bill is asking for, you also have to build the backup and you have to get your team aligned. Maybe if you can provide something quickly, like a quick and dirty response to give your boss, Bill, or I don't know, Caitlin, something to process in the interim, it gives you space to think about how to execute it properly. You know, Action, it creates clarity long before clarity creates action. Think about that. Sometimes when you take steps, just baby steps toward the project or the deliverable, it helps you map out and truly see what is necessary and what really can't get done. I remember once I was working on a product launch and I delayed launching the product weeks because I didn't have all the answers. It was a stage gate process and all of these steps kind of align to the other. If you don't have step A, you can't move to stage B, and I was waiting. I cannot provide you pricing until I know all these other things. I didn't have all the answers. And when I finally moved, the relief was instant. Yes, I don't have all the answers, but I can give you a range on what the price of a typical item like this could be. I mean, It wasn't the task that stressed me, it was my hesitation. And it was also me dealing with the fact that I didn't deliver a perfect product. But you know what? We're done with over delivering, right? We're done with doing way too much. We need to accept that sometimes 80% is good enough to move the project along. I want to know from you, like, is your stress coming from risk or from the waiting? Like the risk of it being imperfect or the risk of waiting for all the steps? We have to let go of over functioning, doing too much, being the glue that keeps everyone together, over delivering. Because when you do that, yeah, you feel uneasy at first, but that's not your failure. That's withdrawal from your fixer identity. Your brand is it's going to shift. Instead of it being over functioning, over delivering, and having, doing all of these invisible pieces of leadership, it is showing up as your best self, leading from strategy, calling out what can be complete and what can't be completed. What if your stress is coming from being seen? Have you thought about this? Sometimes being visible. I talked about this before that I had a very high demanding job. My job was to put together financial statements for the C-suite, and it was awesome because I had all of this visibility. I'm telling you, I'm sitting in meetings with the CFO, I'm sitting in meetings with the CEO. It was awesome, but it was also high pressure because I was sitting elbows with them. I knew that I needed to be poised. I knew that my responses not only needed to be correct and accurate, but I needed to have the backup ready at my desk to go if someone had questions. I knew that by speaking up, I had the risk of being challenged. I knew that by having opinions, while it's great, is this really the person I want to have the opinions with? What will it lead to? Being visible is tough, right? And that is, it has stress all in itself. But again, it's strategic visibility that we're talking about. We want to take a step back and realize that no, we won't have all the answers. In fact, every time I raise my hand in meetings with senior leadership, sometimes my voice shook, sometimes it cracked because I knew I didn't have the backup. I knew it was going to take me 2 hours to pull the backup for something that I knew. By backup, I mean supporting detail. I knew that all of my decks weren't necessarily ready, but it turned out that me speaking up in that moment, it saved my team time, effort, and energy from going down the wrong path. When was the last time you let yourself be visible on purpose and not by accident? We talked about a lot of stress, a lot of different forms of stress that can help you instead of hurting you. But here's the bottom line, 2026, it's not the year from you to run from every hard thing. It's the year that you learn the difference between stress that breaks you and stress that builds you. You deserve a life where your energy goes toward expansion and not survival, where your boundaries create space, not guilt, and where your visibility feels earned and not accidental, and where your growth feels uncomfortable, yes, but it doesn't feel unsafe. So I want you to think about this week. Which stress in your life is actually growth and which is actually draining your power. Because I want you to be honest, like your future self is listening. And if you're tired of navigating this alone, if you're tired and you're done living in chronic survival mode while trying to lead like a powerhouse, I'd love to support you, whether that's through coaching, my masterclass, or even bringing me to your organization. My work is about helping driven women climb in corporate without the cost of burnout, because when you stop tolerating the wrong stress, you finally make room for the life and the leadership that you were meant for. You know I'm right. In fact, did you subscribe to this channel? Come on, subscribe so I can make more of these videos and we can talk more about the things we need to unlearn to thrive in corporate without the burnout.